I am no longer Bihan. I am Sub-Zero.
How is it possible that there's a 26-year difference between the original film and the newest one, and the original actually makes more sense? I've got a friend with me today because you need more than just one perspective on this movie. Today's Black Man's Log review is featuring Solomo2015.
What's up, guys? It's Solomo2015. Trying to set up a new YouTube channel, so come check me out.
Check out his channel below. He does some streaming on Twitch, a little bit on YouTube. Well, let's go ahead and get back here to the movie. 6.4 on IMDb, 55% on Rotten, 44% on Metacritic. I've got to be completely honest with you. That IMDb score is extremely generous. Mortal Kombat is the latest video game film that is on the chopping block. Due to the Rona, we won't be able to judge this one purely based off of box office sales, but that's alright, because that's what we're here for today.
Unfortunately, I wasted my money to go to the theaters for this movie. $100 for a cab ride and seat is definitely not worth it in my opinion.
Fortunately for me, I decided to go ahead and turn on HBO Max, made a last minute decision not to see this one in the theaters. As it is a video game film, we do have to decide if it falls in the category of a film based on a video game or if it's an actual video game film. The plot in this movie, especially with the brand new character Cole Young, makes this more of a film based on a video game than anything. Typically that means the movie will be enjoyable to some degree.
The film writers, despite this, try to pass MK 2021 off as a video game film. I'll provide quotes when it becomes important.
Mortal Kombat is watchable. At some points it's enjoyable, but as with most video game films, it's under much more scrutiny due to the history of genre of this film. Even more so with the Mortal Kombat franchise itself on the big screen. I won't talk too much about the history as you can do the research, but there were two prior films in the 90s. One was successful and became a cult film, and the other was the opposite. I have no idea where the new MK will fit in this franchise except being a modern 4K worthy experience for all of you HBO Max streamers. Mortal Kombat delivers where it always promises, an interesting array of characters engaging in extremely gory combat. The best part about it is that it feels grounded and very realistic, which means good fight choreography, but at the same time it's also creative in the only way MK can be. Sub-Zero creating a wall of ice and throwing Scorpion through it. Kano, Cole, and Sonya using a flare to level the playing field against an invisible reptile. Any scene where Kung Lao uses his hat. I mean, just look at this thing. This thing is almost as bad as Captain America's shield, defying the laws of physics. How does he even catch this thing?
Man, watching the effects happen? MK 2021 is a beauty to watch in theater. Even small details like Sub-Zero ice creeping up on people, or Liu Kang's dragonfire bursting onto Kano's face was satisfying to say the least.
But MK, even with all of its goriness, can't be 110 straight minutes of flawless victories and fatalities. There is downtime, and within that downtime the plot must unfold, to create a reason for the conflict, to drive the conflict. This often requires dialogue, and this is where Mortal Kombat fails spectacularly.
Oh yeah. If you plan on watching this, be prepared to say why or he or she say this a bunch of times.
The opening minutes of the film are fantastic. They focus on the bloody rivalry that has fueled the series for decades, Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, but even this is a little more grounded at this time. Scorpion isn't the Scorpion we know yet, but Hanzo Hasashi of the Shirai Ryu clan. Sub-Zero has not donned his new moniker yet either, so it's Bihan who tracks down Hanzo and kills his family. Bihan has already discovered his infamous powers and is too strong for Hanzo, defeating him. The dialogue between the two is minor as they speak different tongues. Bihan Chinese and Hanzo Japanese. However, the blood spill between them is the language they can both understand. This is the best part of the movie. The opening minutes. You don't quite get the why behind Bihan killing Hanzo's family, but you understand enough to grasp the gravity of the situation. Bihan leaves, Hanzo fades into the Netherrealm, and a crying baby left alone inside Hanzo's home is picked up and cared for by Lord Raiden, God of Thunder.
Everything about this opening scene is perfect, especially the choreography. I actually kind of cringe with some of the blows taken during the fight. Felt too real.
Everything else beyond this is a mountain of bad dialogue, goofy plot, and absolutely worthless characters with arcs that are nearly unusable now. This movie is a slap in the face to anyone who actually enjoys the story or the character development that has been worked over and over and over for the characters in the Mortal Kombat franchise. I'm speaking to one group of people, and it's the most important group of people because they are the target audience for this film. I think our expectations would be too high if we expected these writers to know these characters entirely and flesh out their complicated stories on screen in 110 minutes. But we do expect you to at least have a purpose with the characters in the story.
See, and this is why the main reason why video game movies fail. There's no love put into the story of this movie. Minimal references to the original source material. Just pure action happening with no clear reason.
The majority of Outworld's fighters, the villains to put it simply, might as well be nameless. Most who knew the franchise were questioning the cast as the trailers dropped, wondering why they chose those specific characters and what portion of the MK franchise storyline they were trying to tell. The movie offers you quick and painful answers. There really doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for the various Outworld fighters selected. And I have to see this from two sides, right? Because if you're someone who's a newcomer or not as knowledgeable to the franchise and you're watching this film, the canon past of these characters might not matter to you in the moment, and that would be acceptable if anything else was in its place, but there's nothing.
And if you're pretty knowledgeable about MK, or just know what's on the surface, you're just gonna be confused about what's actually happening. Because the movie itself doesn't even try to explain what's going on, really.
So let's dive into those characters a little bit. Mileena is a bloodthirsty combatant with large teeth, wears purple and uses size. Where's Kitana? Where's the crazy father-daughter relationship between her and Shao Kahn? Where's any explanation for why she looks the way she looks, because it's actually important? Her sparing Sonya is extremely uncharacteristic. I'll let it slide because plot, right? But Mileena is a bloodthirsty killer.
Mileena should have never been thought about in this film, honestly. Her character takes building. You need more than one connection to make her role make sense. She's not some random Outworld jobber, guys. She's actually a threat in the series. It has a pretty cool background.
Cabal is given a brief connection to Kano and later manipulates him. At first it seems like they may pit the two against each other because Cabal blames his current condition on Kano, but that goes in the opposite direction. I'm not sure if we're supposed to chalk up Cabal's powers to Arcana or the suit, but he has them and they will not be explained, and that's really it for his character, who's also pretty complex as well. Reiko is literally just a strong guy with a hammer, and nothing else beyond that.
Personally, I don't even know why Reiko is here under Shang Tsung. He's not even relevant in the story yet. He could possibly just not return because of bad writing.
Reptile's entire existence isn't too far off, honestly. He's really just someone to be killed and a chance to show off some camo CGI. Goro is Goro. Do I have a problem with him being killed by the newbie of the group? Sure. I'll give it a pass due to plot. But Goro is basically a super strong four-armed guy who somehow loses to a guy who's in need of training and just discovered his powers. In Outworld, Goro is a champion with many bodies under his belt, but sure, this orphan from the south side of Chicago can kill him. Natara is one of the worst additions to this movie. No lines, and she dies a horrible death at the hands of Kung Lao. Was it really worth it to get a cheap one-liner for the flawless victory?
Yet another character with no reason to be here other than to die. See the pattern? But at least the fatality is cool, right?
The lack of character depth is astounding, and left me asking, but why, whenever these characters were on screen? Shang Tsung and Sub-Zero were partially fleshed out enough to be seen as evil and at least be villains with some sort of developed character. On the protagonist side, it's better, but not by much, primarily because the story has to be advanced by some of the dumbest plot devices I've ever had the displeasure to watch on screen. Arcana and tattoos. Arcana is some sort of hidden potential energy that exists in everyone, which seems pretty goofy and makes it not unique. But this Arcana can only be unlocked if you have the dragon tattoo on your body. At first it makes sense. Our protagonist Cole Young was born with this birthmark. Jax tells him that he's been chosen, as Jax has a tattoo as well, but we hear from Kano and Liu Kang later that the birthmark can be transferred by killing those with a birthmark.
Now let it be known that Arcana is not a part of MK lore at all. It's just been made up for this movie and it's terrible.
So the initial problem here is that the Super Saiyan energy, Arcana, is this made up garbage that has never been in the video games ever. But even I tried to give it a chance, and it just doesn't work. Things that don't need to be changed were changed in this film. The funny thing about Arcana is that if you would have done some research, you would have already found out that there was a swirling pool of magic energy on Earth in the MK series called Jinsei, and although that wouldn't have been entirely canon to use for every single character, that would have been more acceptable and more explainable than the Super Saiyan magic that is Arcana. Kano's laser eye has been a cybernetic implant since the dawn of time. We didn't need to explain it via Arcana and dragon markings he happened to get, just allow the source material to play out. But when I see that Kano's Arcana is activated by his emotions, I have to ask, but why?
I don't know, just probably get a cheap laugh out of people watching a movie. Kano's actually pretty funny, but funny does not equal being a good character, unfortunately. He's just decent at best.
The writers never know where they want the source of Arcana to be. Kano finds his via emotions, but Liu Kang and Kung Lao tell the Earthrealm fighters that their Arcana will be discovered in the fighting pits, which leads to a montage of everybody getting their asses kicked with no real progress. Jax and his arms are a confusing mess, and Arcana makes it worse. Not only does he just somehow get cybernetic enhancements from the Shaolin, which seems like an insane reach that they would be able to figure out some sort of cybernetic arms for him as they're living in caves and appear to be more traditional monks who don't deal with any type of technology. Arcana makes this works by making his powers cybernetic arms? The Arcana just kind of builds onto it more? But why? Why not just follow the source material that seems a lot more plausible than the crap you're trying to feed me?
More on that. If Jax is able to grow extra parts for his new cybernetic arms from Arcana, how come Kano can't do the same for his eye? Lazy writing? Or just trying to pack in more for cheap laughs? I'll let you guys decide on that one.
Which is likely lazy writing, but we'll get back to that a little bit later and move on to character development. Liu Kang is incredibly weak for some reason. I gave that a pass. His backstory's messed up. I also gave that a pass. And he's not the main character of this movie. I also gave that a pass. I gave the entirety of Liu Kang's character a pass. Arguably the most important character in the entirety of the series, because I wanted to give this movie a chance to be watchable and potentially enjoyable. I gave his entire character a pass so they could get this character Cole Young in there. Liu Kang's entire character arc is taking a lot of L's, giving vague instructions to the new Earthrealm fighters about how to get your Arcana, and being overly loyal to Raiden as expected. In contrast to Liu Kang, Kung Lao's Arcana is not actually explained. Is it the hat? Is it the teleportation powers? Is it both? Unfortunately for him, he's Kung Lao, which means a swift death is on the way. The relationship between Kung Lao and Liu Kang seems a little off. The brother-friend rival thing doesn't quite seem there, which is important because that's a bit of a contrast to the Sub-Zero Scorpion thing, and seems like Liu Kang not only looks up to Kung Lao, but that the latter is stronger. Again, as a newcomer, you don't have much perspective on this, so I can only partially deem the movie for this. But as a whole, Kung Lao's character is pretty worthless. He gives you some exciting MK-related gore to look at, but that's really it. I think I'm asking myself more questions on how and why Liu Kang didn't throw a fireball at Shang Tsung to save him.
Okay, these two were supposed to be the saving grace of this movie. The best fighters by far, always having the edge of a fight despite encountering new threats with no experience thus far, and the guys are bringing the most W's. But as we all see it, these might as well just be two random mugs, who just happen to be slightly a cut above the rest. Maybe Kano was right calling them out at the dinner scene after all.
Ignoring that cringe dinner scene when Kano finds out his powers, we'll move on to Raiden next, who's also a trash character. He can and has done far more to protect the Earthrealm to uphold the rules of Mortal Kombat, typically in assistance with the Elder Gods. However, the Elder Gods seem to be asleep the majority of the film. Shang Tsung notes this and exerts his will regardless. Why we don't see Raiden taking care of business is beyond me. Raiden is also a lazy jerk for whatever reason. He's unimpressed by the Earthrealm fighters when they show up initially, even though he requested them. Let me clarify that for you. Raiden asked Liu Kang to find the chosen fighters. Liu Kang did not find the three who showed up. They found the temple after what seemed like a pretty long hike. Raiden, who can transport anybody to any realm in the blink of an eye, asked Liu Kang, who would take a lot of time and resources to find one person to find the chosen fighters. Raiden could have rounded up the group of fighters within seconds, but the writers think you're stupid and hope that Natara's body being sliced in half by Kung Lao's gravity-defying hat will keep you entertained enough not to ask these questions. Now I know what you're saying. Raiden wouldn't have picked up Sonya because she doesn't have the mark. How would she get to the temple? Well, if you go back to the source material, Sonya chasing Kano down and them being bitter rivals to each other, you've got something that doesn't feel like that much of a stretch.
Raiden's completely out of character for this movie. The whole point of his character is that even though he's the god to protect Earthrealm, he's not cynical. He actually does a lot of things that would not be pleasing to other elder gods, and is actually quite helpful with the fighters, sometimes to his downfall. But you can't really see that side of him, because, writing. It's also a very dire situation for the realm as well, so it's wholly within character for Raiden to go to extremes to help his realm's fighters, even to the extent of actually getting into his own fights. But, I guess.
And then there's Cole, who I actually have zero problems with. He's not my favorite character, he's not someone I hate, but he helps drive the story, and I think Louis Tan, or Tan if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, did a good job of portraying the character we've never seen in the franchise. Cole didn't feel like an outsider to the franchise while being new. I honestly don't have too much to say about him except the fact that he grew up on the south side of Chicago, and assuming he knows Japanese, especially when he never speaks it in the film, seems like a stretch. So that ending scene where Hanzo is talking to him doesn't make any sense at all. As the viewer it does for us, but simultaneously I should have no expectations that Cole knew what Hanzo said or the significance of it, meaning that portion of the plot loses a good majority of its impact because the writers assumed you would ignore this glaring plot hole that could have easily been avoided.
See, it's actually pretty funny because that's the gripe I have with Cole's character. See, about a month prior to the release, Todd Garner, a producer of the movie, when asked about Cole, said, "So we needed an access point for everyone to come into the game, but not to mess with any of the canons of the game, not to mess with anyone's backstory. So in order to keep everyone pristine and keep the game true, we needed the character to come and meet all those characters," supposedly. He implies that the source material is being used, so I guess that means that everyone watching the movie is descended of Scorpion somehow? I don't know. But loyal MK fans at this point should have known that the material is out the window at this point, and I had an idea this dude would be Shirai Ryu, but as a joke. So disappointed.
It just feels too odd that we saw the trailers, had our suspicions, and then we got this varnished turd. The video game callbacks that transitioned into dialogue one-liners are expected. Fight, finish them, fatality, flawless victory. But the overall dialogue of the film, for example, when Bi-Han announces himself as Sub-Zero, reminds you that you're watching a video game film, which is a problem because that's synonymous with bad writing. The goofy plot that could have been better explained via source material adds to this, and altogether with some solid fight scenes, you get the mess that is 2021's Mortal Kombat. There's smaller stuff that could have been done better as well. There's a voice effect to make Shang Tsung's voice a little more menacing and outworld that I appreciated, but why wasn't Scorpion given the same treatment? Give me more of that Hellfire vibe with the iconic words, "Get over here," you know?
Or maybe even give Liu Kang his original bicycle kick sound. Could have pulled some strings for that at least. That would have been so funny.
Everything else really can be summed up by asking questions about the plot. Why didn't Raiden transport everyone to the final fight per the plan? Why did Scorpion show up at the end and only the end? Doesn't really seem like Cole did anything to trigger Scorpion. Why is Kitana not in this movie? Where are the Elder Gods? Why is Liu Kang not the main character? Who is Earth's champion as dictated by Raiden in most cases? Why is your Arcana unlocked with the stupid dragon mark? And why does it transfer? If everyone has Arcana, how is anyone really chosen? Why must Sub-Zero eliminate Hanzo's bloodline? Their feud in the 17th century makes sense, but in the 20th century it doesn't really. Why does Raiden again not go find his new list of champions himself? Why is this movie called Mortal Kombat, yet Mortal Kombat never actually occurs? Why does Sonya just kind of forget about Jax at the beginning? Where are the special forces that Sonya commands? Why does Melina not kill Sonya? She just would. I can't really explain why she wouldn't. Do the writers not expect me to hysterically laugh at a poster that reads Citizen Cage because I laughed for about 30 minutes after I read the poster that said Citizen Cage? There are some good things though. Kano was a great addition and seemed like the stand-in for Johnny Cage, as he played on the protagonist side for a moment before betraying and switching sides. His relationship with Sonya feels very faithful to the source material. He's a wisecracking merc with a mouth. I'd be looking forward to the relationship between the two and his eventual death if Sonya hadn't already killed him, which seems like a waste. Sub-Zero, while being a little confusing in his pursuit and his backstory post the events of 17th century Japan, is an all-around badass. Sub-Zero is the personification of a Mortal Kombat film. Enough story to get you started, not enough to actually make this movie make sense, but damn is he cool to look at.
I also love the new Sub-Zero vibe. Beyond is hands down top 5 fighters in MK lore in my opinion. So to just go out and make him scary is perfect setup to what he might become if they ever decide to do a sequel, or even the less likely MKCU that was thrown out at some point.
Shang Tsung did very Shang Tsung-like things, and this was believable. I'm glad I watched this movie. It proves that video game movies, regardless if they are actually based on a game or just used as a foundation for the plot, have a lot of work to do. I will hopefully never watch this again, and I will be pretty surprised if a franchise is created from this. I understand if there was a will to start fresh and build something new for newcomers to the series to get into Mortal Kombat a little bit easier. It's a little bit of a curveball for the OG fans, but that's alright. But this movie is disrespectful. It's a disrespectful 110 minutes to any MK fan that knows the lore. And to the new fans or those not very knowledgeable regarding the series, it asks you to sit through bad and bland writing for some gory action scenes. This is writing that could have been actually replaced with word-for-word dialogue from previous video games that would have not only been more acceptable but more entertaining.
Yeah, man, sad to see, but honestly, Hollywood gotta do better with video game movies, man.
I have to give this movie 2 ratings because, again, I said at the beginning of this that I have to see this from 2 different perspectives. The first score I have to give it is from the newcomer perspective, and I have to give it a 5 out of 10. If you're new to Mortal Kombat, if you don't know much about the lore, if you just enjoyed the action of it, I'd have to give Mortal Kombat a 5 out of 10, and that's more in line with those Metacritic and IMDb scores. But if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, if you grew up with this game, if you grew up with these characters, hell, if you've played any of the last 3 games amongst the last 5-10 years or so, this movie's a 3 out of 10 on the official Black Man's Log scale. You want to watch this for the fight scenes, but in all honesty, go pick up the original movie from '95. That might be my nostalgia talking, but the numbers don't lie. Thanks for joining me on Black Man's Log. Thanks Solomo2015 for joining me on this one as well. I'll catch you guys in the next review.